is this not coming to the front? Oh, because you guys are nice and big. Here, I'm going to minimize you all. If you have a question, just holler out. So I just wanted to kind of show you, and I'm not even going to go into the who and the why or any of that. These are just some paintings that I pulled out that I think are really good examples of kind of what we're shooting for. And as we're looking through these, one of the things that I hope that you pay attention to is the fact that the way that the surfaces are created, very rarely are they going to be going in and just taking a color straight out of the tube and putting a solid color directly onto the canvas. These surfaces are really, really worked. There's many, many layers involved. And there's a lot of energy in the application of the paint. You're not getting any sense of scale with these, but you know, whether it's like a little passage like that, you know, there's a quickness to the application of the paint. And that is something that is hopefully going to be something that you see throughout your work. Doing wet and wet blending, like right here in this painting, is a great way to kind of keep, and you guys definitely want to watch this because there's wonderful insights, I hope, that will be presented. But working kind of into the paint while it's wet so that you're building up. And if you look at this area here, you notice how there's this yellow, and this is a really low resolution image, but there's this kind of darker yellow and then a lighter yellow on top. Even if you're using something like white paint, you're going to have different kind of versions of the white or different versions of the yellow. You're not going to just have one color. And I noticed that with like Ruby's painting and copy of Hans Hofmann, she did a really nice job where it's got kind of a greenish background, but then there are several different varieties or flavors of greens that are superimposed on that. A lot of times if people just go in with one color, that tends to look really, really primitive in a way that is not successful. And so if you're going to have a big passage of color like this one here, you want to have a range of versions of that color. So like light yellow, really saturated yellow, and then more of a browner yellow. Composition is also a big piece. The rule of, in a focal point right here on the rule of thirds. That's not always going to be the case for these pieces, but I think it's something to keep in mind. I don't even know who this painter is, but it's a really wonderful painting. This is more of an all over composition. But if you look down here in the bottom left-hand corner, one of the things I hope you'll see is that there is a real layering. Let's see if I can zoom in. Nope, I cannot zoom in very much. But there's like a whole painting underneath the painting that's on top. And that's really what makes this have a richness to it. If you're just going in on a white canvas and you just have one approach and one kind of set of marks, you don't get that richness of the work. This is Gorky, who we've looked at a little bit. I think I may have even shown you some of his pieces before. Same idea, there actually is some white canvas visible here, but there's lots and lots of layers going on and kind of building up the surfaces. This is kind of the technique that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today as we get into my demo. There are many, many ways to make a painting. And I think part of this activity is I'm going to today demo one way to do it, but you are going to work to try to find your own approach. And there's really not a right or wrong. There is a good, better, and worse. And ultimately that comes down to composition, use of, the mark making, kind of like what we dealt with the old master drawings. What kind of marks are you using? Are they, is there a solid composition? Is the color scheme effective? Those are all things that you need to be thinking about in terms of making a successful finished work. But there's not necessarily one way to go about it. And a lot of artists come up with little tricks and different ways to do things. I like the little boat here that's kind of hidden in that composition. That makes me happy. Obviously, these works are quite large scale. And so, they don't have, you guys are working smaller, but your big one is even small compared to a work like this. But part of the activity here is to understand how to work at a larger scale and some of the compositional challenges that come with that. You can't do the same kind of marks. You can't do the same kind of application of paint and expect the result to work out on a larger canvas usually. This is another great example of, again, layering. And so you got big pass. You can see that there's a painting underneath. There's another painting on top of that that's kind of translucent. And then there are these linear elements. Let's see if I can zoom in on here. This is actually, these paintings are from an exhibition down in Florida called Art Basel Miami, which is a big painting exhibition that they have every year. But the fact that you can take and have big passages of color, and then you can also go over top of it with different types of linear elements is a really neat little trick that I will talk about today. And sometimes it's just the dense, rich application, the kind of the frenetic application of the paint that comes in and makes a painting, have some degree of success. So as you're working, I think that's part of what you're going to hopefully be learning today. I want to show you some examples of student work. Maybe. Yep. I keep hearing my echo and it drives me nuts. So I want to show you some examples of ones that were really successful, in my opinion. This is a piece done by Sam, who is now a videographer up in Philadelphia. But this piece actually won a national gold medal in scholastics. And one of the things you'll notice about it is that none of the colors are like right out of the tube. Everything's been mixed. You can see that there's a lot of, again, layering. And the other piece that she did a really great job is she really built the surface texture. So it's this really dynamic composition, dynamic use of colors, and the surface of the painting itself is rich and interesting. Another one that I think is particularly successful. This is Alex, I think actually SW, and maybe that's not who I think it is. But this is a particularly dark painting. It's got a lot of darks, but again, the colors are really, really rich. When you think about a painting, you want to kind of think about and I'm looking at my posters over here, kind of the formal elements. You want to make sure that it has movement and rhythm and repetition. And this painting really does that. You can actually see where she did paint with her hands. She got paint on her fingers and kind of rubbed it across the surface, but built these really rich layers that you cannot achieve with just one application of paint. So I thought that was a particularly kind of successful piece. This is a successful piece, but in a totally different way. This is really more about surface and texture and less about, like really intense use of color. So she's contrasted a very smooth passage and shape on the canvas, and then she's really built up these other textures and then has this almost kind of pastel-y wash effect that they worked in on top of that. I thought that was a really effective compositional piece. This one I like too. Actually, I like both of these. This is kind of cool. You can see again thin layers of wash and then layering and layering and running. This is a great example of a really open composition where it's kind of running off and you get a sense of it running off in all directions. So it feels bigger than it actually is. Nice color scheme, a little bit more neutral, but again, nothing right out of the tube in terms of the colors. Some that I thought were maybe a little less successful. This is a nice piece, but I'll show some ones that are in my opinion, not so successful. This painting, it's kind of like faux Jackson Pollock, and then they did these blocks on top that were kind of masked off. And while it's not a bad painting, the color scheme at least is unified, but it's not. I don't know if this is a really overall successful piece. It's not bad, but I don't know if it's all that. Let's see. Oh, I know. I'll pull that up in just a second. Yeah. This is not, again, compositionally not so bad, but where I think this piece isn't as interesting as some of the ones that I've shown you guys is the background is so, it's just so washy, and you don't get a sense of the layering that ultimately you need to get to achieve a piece that's really, really finished. This needed at least 2 or 3 more layers to really be successful in my mind. Is this the one you were talking about? Yeah, so this is, I'm still torn about this piece. I was torn when the kid made it. But it's one of the things that I do like about it is at least an interesting application of color. She did something that I thought, I actually can't remember. And something that I'll talk about in the demo today is you can see that she saved the edges of the canvas so that you could see the painting that went on underneath of it. And that is for me the part that really makes this piece at least work, generally speaking. And at least you didn't do the stripes like right down the middle. So again, there's lots of different ways to make a work. But I think as I do my demo today, hopefully you'll be able to, this will prove to be helpful. And then if you want to take your artist copy and what I showed today, and then throw all of that away and just make your painting, then that's fine. But hopefully what I'll demo right now is something that will prove to be helpful to you as you are creating your work. All right, so I'm going to stop share. I'm going to mute myself. So can you guys hear me? It's going to be I got to turn off screen sharing here.